Hi, this is Randy Landry, and this is my 10th installment of Common Sense and Ramblings in America, my blog on everything American. Today I'm going to try a little different tact. I remember I told you earlier when I started doing this that I was going to kind of tie this in with my podcast, which is common-sense-in-america.com. And because some of the articles are quite lengthy, and I'm using this blog as in this podcast as a means to communicate and spread it out to a wider audience. So today I'm going to actually read excerpts from one of my articles that I posted last year, or actually in February. I believe it was a repost. I did some editing onto it. The title of this particular article I posted is "The Plot to Destroy America: When and How Did It Start?" So I'm going to read some part to this. Okay. The plot to destroy America can be traced all the way back to 1931 when a Soviet spy walked down the gangplank of the liner SS Europa and into New York. This began the war of espionage initiated by Joseph Stalin. Russia was still reeling from its defeat in World War I by Germany and a series of failed wheat crops. People were starving, industry was falling behind the rest of the world. Stalin realized that the only way to catch up was to steal all the technology needed to spring forward, and this is what he did. By the time Russia was invaded, he had made remarkable inroads in industry and new techniques for planting successful crops, all at the expense of the U.S. Some of this technology was sold to Russia, but the vast majority was stolen. By the end of the war, Russia was producing weapons faster than they could use them. They were getting real-time data from the Manhattan Project. And just a few years after the end of the war, they tested their first atomic bomb on August 29, 1949. The U.S. had only recently tested their first atom bomb on July the 16th, 1945. Needless to say, the USA was caught off guard by the Russian success. Relations between the two superpowers soon soured and led to the Cold War, which lasted until the fall of the Berlin Wall on November 9, 1989. Russia tried everything to destroy our country, from placing sleeper agents in the United States to infiltrating all of major industries and our government agencies, to building missile silos in Cuba, which resulted in the Cuban Missile Crisis and nearly ended in a nuclear holocaust. There was even an urban legend upon the placement of suitcase bombs being smuggled into the country. We became subsequently embroiled in the Korean War and the Vietnam War, both fought to stop the spread of communism. Our federal government almost ground to a halt during the 50s thanks to the Red Scare and McCarthyism. Russia likes to dig her claws into the U.S. every once in a while, but her impact on our country has certainly lessened since the Berlin Wall fell. We have negotiated a decrease in nuclear missiles and the testing of nuclear munitions, but we both possess way too many missiles. At the end of the Vietnam War, President Nixon and Henry Kissinger negotiated trade deals with China. This ushered in another long history of technological thievery, this time by China. It also resulted in the loss of manufacturing jobs and subsequent trade deficits. China has been quite open about their goal to be the most powerful country in the world. Where Russia failed, China is succeeding. They learned from Russia's mistakes. They realized that they can't compete with our military. They watched when we fought the two Gulf Wars. They found out what our strengths were and what our weaknesses were. Our military relies too much on satellites for communication. They have been patient. They have worked from within our country to weaken our infrastructure and to weaken our family structure, economy, educational system. Confucius centers and university campuses are spy centers for the Chinese government. Our political system, manufacturing, technology, and our communication and satellite systems have all been monitored and studied. They realized from the start that they could not beat us in a head-on competition. They realized they had to plan out a long-term campaign to beat us. Here is where their style of government comes in handy. They have a supreme ruler or leader who rules for life, so it is easy to develop a uniform plan of attack. While in the U.S., the longest a president can serve is 10 years, and under special circumstances, close to 10 years. So unless your vice president runs and wins 2 terms after your 2 terms as president, you are a very serious risk of having a good portion of your work reversed by the succeeding president. And this has happened repeatedly. We kind of are like a ship sailing in the ocean without a rudder. We just kind of go back and forth with the currents. because every president has a different agenda. China, like Japan, subsidizes their major corporations. This gives them a major competitive advantage. It took a few decades to be finally able to compete with Japan on an even basis. And Japan didn't want to import any products from America, and they were importing millions of cars to the USA, or exporting, millions of cars to the USA, resulting in massive trade deficits. We have since reversed that trend. Also, until just recently, we were dependent on the Middle East for oil, again resulting in trade deficits. You can see that we have been hemorrhaging money for several decades. So China comes in and pumps billions of dollars into our economy, buying controlling interests in tech companies, buying out politicians through sweetheart deals, sending thousands of students to our colleges where they have been pumping big money into them as well. They gave incentives to companies to move to China. Because of the government support for corporations, they were able to sell products in the U.S. at a loss, putting more manufacturing out of business. They currently control critical sectors of manufacturing. They control most of the production of pharmaceuticals, solar panels, computer chips, and many critical items used by our military, computers, network, and other essential components of our economy and infrastructure. With their infusion of money into the government and educational system for the past 30 years or so, they've essentially controlled most of our country. The university system is basically a puppet system of China and the Liberal Democratic Party. Because of this educational control, teaching children that they are living in an evil country, many of the CEOs of tech companies, entertainment, media, were educated under the system and now lean toward socialism and the left. The Democrats control the House and the Supreme Court system and a vast portion of the news media. And now today, they've won the presidency, and they also control the Senate through a vote, tie-breaking vote by the vice president. Most of the social media companies are also controlled by the left. As a result, freedom of speech is almost a thing of the past. So in addition to China's impact on our country, I'm going to discuss the impact that the left has had on our country. Because whether you believe it or not, that is the ultimate goal, the destruction of America. Without America as the bastion of the free world, the rest of the countries will cave into socialism like dominoes. First, to destroy America is to make first step to destroy America is to make it a bilingual or multilingual and bicultural country. There is great tension and turmoil in these societies. Second, invent multiculturalism and encourage immigrants to maintain their culture, where all cultures are equal with no cultural differences. Third, you would make it believed that the dropout rate for these minorities is due to prejudice and discrimination by the majority. Fourth, the minorities need to be the least educated and the most antagonistic to the majority of the population. Fifth, get large companies to give large donations to these minority groups, increasing the belief that they are victims and that their failures are due to the majority. Sixth, promote dual citizenship and promote divided loyalties. Celebrate diversity over unity, stress differences rather than similarities. Diverse people worldwide tend to hate each other. Seventh, control freedom of speech. Don't allow anything negative to be said about the minority groups in the Democratic Party and politicians, but practice freedom of speech, and negative comments directed against the opposing party make it impossible to enforce our immigration laws. And as we can see, under Biden right now, we have open borders, and it's causing havoc. So they're already working on these plans and going full speed ahead, just like I said they were going to. Anybody reading this article, especially the last portion, our items are proceeding in an orderly way, as I said. In recent weeks, there has been a concerted effort to destroy our heritage by destroying statues. However, to many of the left, the problem isn't with statues and memorials, it's the existence of the American Republic and the Judeo-Christian civilization itself. So, that's the article. But what I want to do is, I want to cut a few things at the end. I put an addendum section on here. And remember this, socialism leads to communism. How do you create a socialist state? There are 8 levels of control. And this was set up by the Russian leader Khrushchev back in the 1950s. These are what he had listed as the 8 levels of control. Healthcare. Control healthcare and you control the people. Poverty. Increase the poverty level as high as possible. Poor people are easier to control and will not fight back if you are providing everything for them. Debt. Increase the debt to an unsustainable level. That way you're able to increase taxes and this will produce more poverty. Gun control. Remove the ability to defend themselves from the government. Defend the people, defend themselves from the government. That way you're able to create a police state. Welfare. Take control of every aspect, food, housing, income of their lives because that will make them fully dependent on the government. Education. Take control of what people read, listen to, and take control of what children learn in school. Religion. Remove the belief in God from the government and schools because the people need to believe in only the government, knowing what is best for the people. Class warfare. Divide the people into the wealthy and the poor. Eliminate the middle class. This will cause more discontent and it will be easier to tax the rich with the support of the poor. Hey guys, we are there. Why can people not see what's going on in the country? So, if you want to know what's going to happen to this country, just look at Venezuela. Okay, there's 8 levels of control for creating a social state: debt, poverty, health care, gun control, welfare, education, religion, and class warfare. Okay, guys, that was the article I posted on how this country has been undermined, the foundations, and you can see what I've written back in February is coming true now. All these things are happening. Our country is going greater, further and further into debt. We're over $30 trillion in debt. This last piece of legislation has gone through the government, has been signed by Biden, and it's almost a $2 trillion bill, and it's actually going to probably cost more than that. I'm sure there are secret things popping up, and some people are saying it could be up to $4 trillion. We are becoming more and more dependent on other countries for oil, especially overseas to the Middle East, which means we're going to be starting to get more embroiled in Middle Eastern conflicts, which is going to keep us weak, which will allow China just to step in and take over the country, and our country, should I say, and the world at large, because we'll be too involved in our little petty deals trying to protect our oil interests that we really don't need to protect because we could be self-sufficient if we wanted to be. Alright guys, as always, please be safe and don't give up the good fight. You have a great day.